Righto, Money Miners. Quarterly, it's a surprise Wednesday show because fucking it's quarterly season, so it's just pumping. So why not just smash it now?
That's it, mate.
We're on a roll. We've been away. We're just hammering you as hard. So
It's because we want to take Friday off.
couldn't get an interview in time. That's the truth. But well, what do we got today? Paladin's quarterly out. Years are going over to Pakistan.
Sunny
God's country.
Pakistan. Yeah.
God's country.
Really interesting news out of there. And Iluka, I think, as well. Bit of a segment.
I chucked Iluka in at the very end, Matty.
Yeah.
Couldn't help it.
Some big movements on these quarterlies, hey.
Yeah.
Paladin, 10 odd percent, big short interest. Iluka, when I looked, were down 8 odd percent.
Yep. That was the only one that went down that I've noticed in the last couple of days. But, yeah.
Pantoro scraped through with $6 million extra, but they're still up 2%. But
up.
gold was up. Gold's
Evos went
ripping
up.
and tearing.
All the ones we talked about yesterday were up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about Evos today. They what they make 100 or 170 mil. Sounds like a number.
Yeah, 165, I think, was the group cash flow. Mungari's investment sort of coming to its end. Looked like a fairly decent quarter. A bit under 200,000 ounces were done and 18,500 tonnes in copper.
Sorry, Evos, you didn't get the attention Northern Star did yesterday, but hey, bloody, there was a uranium story. So
Report early in the quarter and you probably get it.
True. Yeah.
Spread it out.
Yeah, that's true.
Righto, let's rip in. Paladin, the highlights. So what do we got? They had a 12-day shut this quarter, which was planned for November. So obviously last quarter we saw the guidance get reduced from, the 4 to 4.5 down to 3 to 3.6 million pounds. The guidance got reduced after the quarterly came out. So
And since then, the short interest has just been climbing and climbing.
yeah. So I'll talk about the short interest at the end because it's getting very interesting with them and their Aussie counterpart, you'd say. So once they got back up and going, says in December they produced 308,000 pounds. So for the quarter, they produced 638,000 pounds. So year to date, 1.278 million pounds, and they're guiding for 3 to 3.6. So effectively, they need to, for the next 6 months, achieve what they achieved in December for 6 months straight to meet the bottom end of guidance. They actually need to achieve about I think it's about 330,000 pounds to get the midpoint as well. So
the big news, Matty, after the quarterly was the water challenges with NamWater, and then it sort of factored in when we last spoke about it. They had this shutdown coming in which they would have a bit of an opportunity to build up the amount of water they have there.
Yeah.
But that would only be a short-term fix. So how are things looking on that kind of front?
Well, and I think it's like there's multiple issues that all relate to each other with the water by the sound. So because it was going through a drought period, the Argonaut note actually said that they got about 85 mil of rainfall month to date at Windowick, or the fuck, it's about 180 k's east of the project, so in that area. So it sounds like if there's a bit of rain, hopefully maybe the drought conditions are subsiding. So then they said the water deliveries from NamWater improved and they didn't have any water delays, water-related disruptions in December. But then you got to balance that with like the processing and like the water, reclaiming the water from the tailings and all that, and then the throughput and everything. So there's a big balance there by the sounds about the site water balance that they refer to. So they said they put in extra projects to increase the storage on site. So it sounds like they got a bit more of a buffer after the shutdown. So yeah, just it'll be a wait and see. I'll get to the operation. What's happened, but they got asked about, like, they did mention about possibly pulling the mining forward because they were scheduled to start the open pit mining in July, and they were asked about, like, what can you do to pull it forward? But I was listening to the call and I just didn't get much confidence. They didn't really talk about like that the contracts have been tendered or are the contractors ready. They're like, oh yeah, there's a bit of work to do to get the drill and blast going and all that. It just sounded like, because that's going to be the kicker, is starting the open pit mining, because as you can see, the grade of the stockpile has decreased again to what they were predicting.
Yep.
So the restart study had the stockpile at 508 ppm, and it was 404 ppm feed grade this quarter. So hence, big driver of why the guidance is down also is the grade of what that stockpile is coming back at. Whereas the pit is should have a good understanding of what the grade is from drilling, and whereas this stockpile, it's mined already, you can't control the grade. It is what it is. And they've obviously...
You should still know what it is.
Well, I don't know if they've infill drilled a stockpile. Can you do that?
Sample it.
Yeah, but how do you sample it as you go deep?
There's a lot of variability too, because
as you go deeper, you'll get down, then you can sample it when you go, unless they've fucking drilled down through the whole thing, which fucking, I don't know if it can be, sounds fucking hard.
Yeah.
But that's very different.
20+% sort of difference there, quite a miss.
Yeah, so I think there must be bits of waste in there because they're talking about variability in it. So like sounds like a bit of a bloody shit fight, that stockpile.
Is the increase in grade you're going to get from the open pit, will that be like enough to offset the addition of the mining costs to the production profile?
I think it's also it'll make everything easier, which should cost less because increased grade means they will get better recoveries because they've got more consistent feed, because at the moment they've got a unknown grade going through the mill and there'll be stops and starts, and which are going to increase costs. But if the grade's higher in the pit and they're putting more through and they're getting more uranium, the cost per pound should be, significantly less by a denominator relationship. So, but yeah, I just thought they'd be trying to get... didn't really give much colour on, getting towards first production on the pit. It said July, but fuck, it'd be... If you're going through this shit now, and risking potential... I don't know if there's a cost thing related to it, but if they're going to miss this guidance after downgrading it, they'll get bloody hammered for it.
So they got their work cut out for them to meet that revised guidance, but how about the cash front? And sort of worth mentioning that the fission deal is sort of coming together, so that does change how the financials look a bit.
There were a lot of talk on though. There was more talk on fission, what they're going to do with PLS, than Langer Heinrich on the call. I felt they were really focusing on marketing the PLS part of their business now, not the Langer Heinrich, which I found interesting. And a bit of cash come in the door from now that deal's complete. The pro forma cash has come in, so they've gone up from what they have. We've got bloody notes everywhere here.
Cash lifted from 55 to
there
166.
We go. Yeah, so there was an extra 5 mil drawn on the debt, so the debt's sitting at 100.
Yep.
And there was another 30 odd US come in from it was in the investing activities part of the 5B, but that was sort of the money that's come in from the fission deal. So they made a bit of money at Langer Heinrich processing the stockpiles by the looks. It's just going to be an interesting couple of quarters. It sounds like every quarterly I go through, it's like next quarter's a big one.
Mate, I saw a tweet yesterday. I should have made a top tweet, but it was like the immutable law of mining. Guidance is always second half weighted.
Oh, isn't it what? Isn't it freaking what? So, as I said, 337,000 pounds a month to meet the midpoint they need. So we will wait and see. So if their target recovery band was 85 to 90%, and they're sitting at 88 for the quarter, so that was bloody good work there. So I think
recovery was a big win. Yeah.
Yeah. So
so now you've got
but I think that cash in the door. So having that 160 odd plus, I think that's probably helped the market sentiment, a big lift today. I'm not sure a reason, because it's like I looked at the guidance. I'm like, it's going to be still a bit hard to reach the bottom end after the downgrade. But maybe the fear previously was like, fuck, if they have another shit quarter, discounting what was coming in from the fission deal, they might be at risk of raising money with the debt as well. But looks like a bit of pressure off now. They're 66 mil net cash. So if the plant and water upgrades and everything bring the chocolates next quarter, and if they can hopefully keep the stockpile grade above 400 ppm, because it's been getting close to going below it.
It sounds like just doing okay was exceeding expectations in a way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
now-
I guess they've only been given 1 month to sort of get it going since the shut. So if they've got a good 3 months now, maybe the only thing with the whole water balancing is, and it was a question I think George Ross asked it, like, will increasing the throughput and all that put pressure on the amount of water needed to maintain that higher throughput. So, very, very water dependent over there, but should be going into the not drought season. I think that we've gone through the drought as we've seen. So
More importantly, mate, now that you got the hedge fund going,
the stocks are up. Jeez, why did I sell me boss at 280? Dumbass. But
Tell us about the short interest.
Paladin up 11.5% today, $9.30. Boss also up 12.6%. And they're like both the top two shorted stocks. So since we were chatting mid-December, like Paladin's up 20% since then when the short interest was rising, and Boss is up nearly 30%. So there's a bit, and they're the two outperformers on the ASX today in the uranium that's not across the board. So bit of a bloody, whether the brokers are trying to get that short squeeze going, who knows? So because I think Boss reports at the end of the month and their costs will be coming out as well. So that's going to be a liquidity event. Not a liquidity event. That's
like
not
an
right.
event.
Just an event. There's going to be some liquidity flying around.
volatile event.
Volatile event.
13% on no news that's a big movement. People reading into what's going on here and whatnot. I mean,
the correlation of those two charts is so striking, isn't it? When you just like when you've pasted them like that, Matty.
And as we said, there is an element also of like long next gen short these ones with short interest as well. Like there's obviously
even Cameco people might be looking for
it's like, but there's with those short they're obviously for Boss to be 18.6% short. They're obviously banking in a downgrade. The shorters are banking in a downgrade for that. So we'll wait to see if that happens or not. So as you said last year, it's most of the short, like the Pilbara short last year, short for ages. They were right. The Genesis one hasn't been.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Genesis is still
defied the odds.
I think the most shorted gold stock. It's shorted more than Bellevue.
Yeah.
So that's just cracked over $3 today. So it'd be tough short gold at the moment. But as I said, they're not. It's not like these are naked shorts. Like they're usually shorted paired with something, I would assume. So, so that's going to be interesting. So go bloody uranium.
Yeah,
she's back. So mate, as always, got my eyes peeled for next quarter. Just another stock standard saying.
Love your work, mate.
But the PLS thing is going to be interesting because it's like big project. Like it's not a next gen level, but it's still a fucking project that is going to require a shitload of capital, and it's you could infer it's sort of second in line to Arrow in terms of the priority of that fucking region as they're next door to each other.
Yep.
It's just now it's in the portfolio. How are they going to sort of manage keeping it in the portfolio with cash and everything? Because it's not cheap to keep these big projects unless you just shut shop there, but you still have to maintain it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as across all the details or anything, but like you mentioned, they were marketing a lot. They've also now got a lot of a more international register than they had before by virtue of the merger. So they're like, I wouldn't be surprised to see them, try and advance as fast as possible and talk a lot about them actually having a growth project, yada yada yada, and whether that involves,
felt like the narrative today.
Yeah,
really felt like the narrative, and that gets the flows.
Yeah,
the fucking ETF money,
capital flows.
Yeah. So next, Manara buying a stake in Reko Diq. Now, what a joint this is, boys.
You've got a story about it, mate. I'm keen to hear.
Funny story. So Reko Diq, Brett, shout out to Brett Growcock, who's a bloody, that is his name, JB. He'll come and punch your head in.
Didn't say anything, mate.
He is a surveyor, and he actually was telling me he was surveying he was doing the fucking land survey at Reko Diq.
When was this?
Decades ago.
Wow.
And it was, reckons, because it's, as you can see on the map here, in the western edge of Pakistan, right near the border of Iran and Afghanistan. And he said he'd be walking around and there'd be utes fucking flying in the distance like all smugglers and everything. But being, he's like, fucking, we're going to get bloody shot here or something. But being Pakistan, as soon as he said, Shane Warne, they were fucking all good because they're all cricket fans. So the best, if you want to get out of the shit in Pakistan, just drop some Australian cricket names, drop Warney's name, the legend himself, the king, and you'll be fine. So, mate, I could see bloody MMS start ripping the arse out of bloody Reko Diq soon. Imagine that.
Jesus.
90 years are going to go through it. 90 million tonnes of ore feed a year. Mate, that has got MMS's name written all over it. I don't want to dob you into Reko Diq.
Yeah.
MMS.
But when you think of it,
Be a good contract.
mining services open pit contract that could actually deliver 90 million tonnes a year. Mate.
It is.
Yeah.
Imagine the JV they could do with Barrick and the Saudis that you're going to go through, mate. But as we said, they've propelled Black Cat to fame. They're propelling Wezzies and SQM to fame. They've propelled Vault to fame. Just get them to propel your business to fame by giving them an open pit mining contract right now. They're ready to go. Get them before they go to Reko Diq.
And even if
WA,
you're not ready,
Pakistan, doesn't matter.
even if you're not ready, they've got the technical services capability to get you ready.
Yeah.
Full turnkey
Solution.
mining and technical solution.
That's it.
Right, now who is Manara?
Let's get into it. So there's a few sort of companies we're going to clarify first so people understand what we're talking about. To start with, Matty, you got Manara, JV between the Saudi Arabian miner Ma'aden, which people might have heard of.
Massive. They're massive.
Yeah, they're huge. And the Public Investment Fund, which is a bit of a generic name, but it's the sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia. So I'm sure people would have heard of them in the past. They've bought the Premier League team, Newcastle United. They've been involved in
Newcastle United.
heaps of sports, golf, all these sorts of things.
Oh, so they're the live. They got the live going, did they?
They are the backers owning massive stakes in heaps of assets. They own stakes in tech companies across America. They invest in some of the biggest funds, venture capital firms across the world. They're one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world, about $1 trillion.
Are they
in
big?
assets.
Not as big as Norgis?
They'd be in the same
bigger.
same ballpark.
Yeah.
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 It's a lot of money that they managed, obviously derived.
Both of them come from oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
Exactly.
land, man.
And so that they still have a massive stake in Saudi Aramco. I think it's a 16% stake, and obviously a lot of the money has come from there. Then you've got Ma'aden, which was the company set up by the Saudi Arabian government to develop mineral resources in the country. It was set up almost 3 decades ago. I think in 97 from memory is when they set it up. I think in 2007-ish, they listed it on the Saudi exchange. For a while, it was 50-50 between government ownership and just free float. Now it's about 2/3 owned by PIF itself. So the rest floats out there. Ma'aden actually has a contract with Barrick, who we're obviously going to talk about as well at the moment. They've got a small mine where they produce about 30,000 tonnes of copper in Saudi Arabia right now. That's called Jabal Sayid. So they've done some work together in the past.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about a site visit. Imagine going through like the Saudi Arabia oil fields just to see that must just be phenomenal, that joint. Now I'm into oil. I'm going to go work on the patch in West Texas.
It'd be wild. And
it'd be. I was talking to the landman actually.
Yeah,
Matty
the man
All
himself.
He just said it's fucking something
Next level.
you can't get your head around how big it is.
Yeah.
Like it is that rich.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to wrap up on Manara, they were set up with the purpose of investing in global mining assets. And people out there might remember about 18 months ago, we mentioned that they did a deal with another investment firm from the States to buy 13% in Vale's base metals unit. There's a lot of talk about this being spun out in the future. I think they combined spent $3.4 billion to buy that 13% stake. So all part of the push from the Saudi Arabian kingdom to diversify its wealth from energy.
I need to get on a bloody deal with them. Was it Neymar? He get $500,000 to put a social media post up promoting Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, never mind the $100 million just from
Yeah,
playing a couple games a season.
I'll do it for $250. if you need to.
Bigger personality. All right, let's talk about Reko Diq now, the project itself. So, like you said, Matty, this one's in Pakistan. I don't think we've actually specifically spoken about it, but we've spoken around it a few times in the show. But this is a massive copper gold porphyry project, like
Enormous.
you said, in the sort of mountains there, out in the western part of the country. The ownership is 50% Barrick, 25% is split across 3 Pakistani enterprises. They're actually all coming from petroleum-based enterprises set up by the Pakistani government. And then you've got the government of Balochistan, which is the province in which the project sits.
Yeah.
Now, just a note on that 25%, 15% they'll have to pay for capex and these sorts of things. 10% is a free carried interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
that
the government, not for
that
the
owned by the province. That final 25%,
not the other 25. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a bit hard to find information on this. It sort of comes in drips and drabs as a presentation in 2022. And then in the Investor Day last year, Barrick spoke a bit about it. Lots of comments tossed up in at conferences and these sorts of things where Mark Bristow and people have spoken. But finding all this information together isn't the easiest.
But this like development is like, it's going to seriously, meaningfully transform the copper production of Barrick, right? Like there's an enormous kind of copper profile and gold production profile that's going to come out of this project.
Yeah, so once stage 2 is done, we're talking about 400,000 tonnes a year of copper and 500,000 ounces a year of gold. This with Lumwana in Zambia is going to massively kick on the copper production that comes from Barrick. It's just huge and part of their push to be a bit more of a copper miner as well. Stage 1 is half that, so it's like a lot of these massive projects, stage 1 and stage 2. And on the capex front, US 5.5 was the latest number given for stage 1, and then 3.5 for stage 2, targeting end of 2028. So early works has already started here. Maybe that drags into early 2029, but we're in 2025 now. That is not far away from full-scale construction going ahead. So it's a pretty exciting time for the company and for the country as well. It's massive investment for Pakistan, which is it stands out how much poorer it is to neighbours like Saudi Arabia, which have managed to develop their natural resource abundance really, really well. Pakistan hasn't managed to do that. They've been, dragged into a lot of conflict and these sorts of things. So it's huge for them.
Random facts with Matty, when you talked about the resource size, 3.8 billion tonnes at 0.43% copper and 0.26 grams per tonne gold, so 3.8 billion tonnes. I looked up, Escondida is actually, the resource now, after all the mining, is still 28 billion tonnes. And they've already mined 38 million tonnes of contained copper since 1990. So, this is big, but it shows how big those other ones are as well.
Absolutely.
Still have that much there.
You get to the point here where the reserve, what you mentioned there, measured and indicated, that's a 37-year mine life.
Yeah,
I mean,
huge.
How much bigger do you need to make it?
There.
Yeah, you don't need to make it too much bigger. It's coming from, I think, 4 at the moment porphyry deposits. The initial feasibility was on 2. Now they've sort of expanded it and changed the scope a little bit. So that's the latest we could find. But it is massive, just huge, and I'm sure it'll just go on and on.
Found it? That'd be an interesting history, because I always think, who the fuck would want to look for a copper in Pakistan? But someone obviously thought to.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't always like it is today. You could, decades and decades ago, it didn't have the same perception that it does nowadays. And I'll get in a moment into comments that Mark Bristow made on the area. But yeah, these jurisdictional environments and the ability for people to explore changes over time, and what it is right now isn't what it once was. So maybe it's more peaceful times and people just thought, this looks a bit like the Andes. Let's have a go.
Who would have thought Pakistan would be more friendlier than Mali, possibly?
I think you're absolutely right. Right now,
for Barrick anyway.
Yeah.
I remember listening to, I think it was Friedland speak at that, the conference held in Riyadh. Maybe it was a year ago or 2 years ago. But his keynote thing, he talks about the best places in the world to mine are actually where you have where it's parts of the subcontinent where it's like a desert, not necessarily like all this water and all that sort of stuff, because then you got environmental issues, and the places where great ore bodies are still available to discover are under a bunch of cover, and you've got the recipe for that in the sort of that Saudi Arabian belt.
Yeah, especially where there hasn't been heaps of development over the past few decades. And Friedland as well has a investment there. Ivanhoe Electric has done a deal. I think Mardin owns 9.9%.
Yeah, because I've heard there is a fuckload of metal in Saudi Arabia, but to get the metal, you have to get rid of the oil fields. It's in the oil field area. So what are they? They're not going to go, we'll just, the oil is their money. So if the oil finishes in parts, there is a shitload of metal there to go for once the oil gets disassembled.
Hopefully the metal's not quite as deep as the oil they pump out.
Think so. Yeah. Surely you can do both at the same time. No, you can't. Right. Where are we up to? This is exciting.
A lot of tons, Matty. That's where we're up to. What do you think of when you think a lot of tons need to be moved?
I think Saltbush contractor would be licking their lips.
They sure would be. 90 million tonnes.
They could complement MMS over there. The mine to mill specialists. Mate, talking about moving bulk amounts of bloody tons of stuff. I called Lockie Jones on Christmas Day just to wish the Saltbush family Merry Christmas. Mate, he just come off night shift hauling bloody Santa's presents around all fucking night. That's how much like there is. Yeah. He is the Saltbush are the people that do bulk, shitloads of tons anywhere. They bloody absolutely love it.
Why do you think it's called Saltbush? Because they'll do it in the tough conditions. It could be salty conditions, and mate, they drive through the bush. Get it done.
That's exactly how they come up with it.
50-degree heat, no problem for them.
Oh, mate, they love it in that purple band we were talking about yesterday, mate. And even random shit like road construction, bloody road maintenance, plant equipment hire, friggin' what else we got here? Bulk earthworks, site rehab. Just remember, if something's hard on your mine site and you're getting pissed off about something, use the famous words, get fucking Saltbush to do it.
365
I've
days
used
of
those
the year.
words, and that's what they did. Shout out to Daisy Milano. They just kept that joint humming. So get them to get your joint humming. Go Saltbush.
Go Saltbush.
That's it. Alrighty, let's
for helping Santa, Lockie.
Get fucking Saltbush to do it.
It's good saying.
Let's talk about the deal itself. This is why we're talking about all of this. So news emerged, and it's not been a massive secret. It's been talked about for some time, that Manara would buy 10 to 20%. They valued the lot here at US $9 billion. They'd be buying that stake from the Pakistan government. Barrick not interested in diluting their stake anymore. And the ballpark dollar figures we're talking about is $500 million US to $1 billion. So a bit ambiguous what that ultimately ends up being. But the Pakistani petroleum minister did say at the conference you spoke about just last week, Trav, that he expects this Manara investment to be wrapped up over the next 2 quarters. So something's going to happen there. It's going to happen quite soon. Be keen to see what it ends up coming out at. And I'm also interested to see if there's any sort of offtake or any deals like this that are tied up into it, because that is very much a part of the strategy of Manara as well. Pakistan and more broadly the Middle East has done these downstream deals in the past. They sort of famously did it a lot with aluminium, obviously a super energy intensive downstream sector to be working in. And
Pakistan or Saudi Arabia?
This was in Saudi Arabia, but also places like Qatar and the Middle East more broadly have attracted a lot of companies to come in because they have the abundance of energy and they can do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if these guys are seriously considering doing stuff like that in the copper space and other base metal space. They're, not in a bad part of the world where they're located either, especially if the resources are coming from relatively nearby. So that could be a part of the deal when it ultimately comes up too.
So Pakistan, the government are potentially going to have 5% left in the project, but they might take a bill now. Is that sort of what's going to happen?
I think you could think that.
Yeah, but I mean, remember 50% is really owned by various Pakistan entities. Those enterprises, I'm sure, are majority sort of state enterprises.
Yeah, okay.
As well. So
they still have a good chunk.
Yeah, and then there's big royalties that they have on it as well. So they're going to maintain a healthy interest, and they need to be able to fund a portion. It's not all free carried either. So that plays a big role in this too. They've got a lot of sovereign debt right now, a lot owed to Saudi Arabia itself as well. So being able to fund your portion of the capex is central to this as well, I see.
That's why I think they sell down the portion that's not free carried.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they,
And
so
then-
if they sit at 10%, they're free
Yeah.
carried,
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's kind of just a staggering kind of project value to think of, though, right? Like, you could call it whatever, US $1 billion for 10%. So it's what they valued at, like US $9 billion or thereabouts, $10 billion undeveloped project. Like, yeah, that's
US, huge.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah.
In Pakistan, in that part, I mean, just to get comfortable with putting what's going to total US roughly $9 billion in capex
Yep.
into the ground, you'd have to do a lot of work over a long period of time, a lot of bloody meetings to get comfortable with that sort of investment. It's impressive that they've got this far along. And to round out on the jurisdiction, Bristow made some really interesting comments, I think in October of last year, that we should play right now regarding how he and how Barrick see the emergence of Pakistan and this project.
Zambia.
And then quickly, can you update us on the progress at Reko Diq in Pakistan?
Yeah. So Reko Diq is super exciting. This is like the early days in Chile, the Escondida discoveries and so on. You can walk across the porphyries. There's more than one, significantly more than one. It's a real endowment for the people of Balochistan and the greater Pakistan.
Very interesting. How much downstream copper is in Saudi?
Not much at the moment.
Not much at the moment.
Yeah.
But some?
Geez, I'd guess none, to be honest. I mean, if you're gonna build some, and the way they sort of do it, they build it kind of big, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Not totally sure.
Yeah, interesting. The rise of the Middle East.
I was going to mention that.
Once Japan and South Korea take off, we're heading to the Middle East.
Mate, you say it kind of jokingly, but that is part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this today, because people talk about Middle East and they often group North Africa in there too, but they're getting really serious about this. I mentioned that Martin was set up 25 odd years ago, but if you look as a rough proxy what the share price has done the last 3 or 4 years, it's 4 or 5x. The amount of dollars that they're putting in, they've got this whole Saudi Vision 2030 project. They're getting really, really serious about this. And it started with aluminium a little while ago, but now it's coming across the mineral spectrum. They're less bogged down by bureaucracy than we are in the West. And even that, they're working pretty actively to cut it down. So I think it's really, really impressive actually what they're doing. At that big conference you mentioned, Trav, last year, they upgraded the mineral wealth, whatever that sort of means, of their country. They doubled it to $2.5 trillion. So that they clearly think there's a lot in their country. And they said they want to attract US $200 billion in investment by the end of the decade. And we speak about it all the time. The investment dollars in this industry are pretty competitive. They go to the places where there's less bureaucracy, where there's less delays, where there's less red tape, where the investment environment is stable and competitive. And that should be a bit of a warning to us in Australia, I reckon. If we, continue to go down the track in some parts, obviously we're mostly a pretty great place, but there's been some, less great things to talk about in recent times. If we keep going down that track, we'll become a much less competitive environment. You hear BHP, Rio, Glencore, all these companies talk about it every other week over the past few years, and it should be a serious sort of concern for politicians and stuff in the country, because you need to attract companies to continue to invest in the country. Otherwise, they'll go away. They'll go to places where they can invest stably in these sorts of things. And the Saudis are working hard to attract that money. So it's a really interesting, broader conversation, I think.
And they're working hard to repair it's all about the image of Saudi Arabia. So the push for Saudi to repair their image after the Khashoggi thing and all that. You could anticipate they're going to be friendly to work with for these companies.
You're spot on, mate. They're working super hard to clean up that image. That's why they do things like the golf. They've they've won the rights to host the World Cup in 2034, just like Qatar did. A lot of this is to fix the image, and they're going to put a lot of money towards that. Obviously, there's some preconceived ideas what people have about working in the Middle East and all these sorts of things, which are a conversation worth having as well. But they're working hard at changing how the country is perceived and how the region is perceived as well.
Yeah, even just like the availability of capital is like an interesting thing to ponder. I mean, there's been a real lackluster in, like availability of new capital to invest in like large developments. The industry's been pretty capital constrained. A lot of the active capital's kind of vanished. But this is like one area where there's a very large and kind of active pool of capital to deploy. In our industry.
If Aramco can sponsor the F1, I can't see why they can't cornerstone money of mine. Why not?
You want to fix your image?
I'll help with the Saudi image for cash. All right, on to the bloody. Let's go on to mineral sands.
Iluka.
I've learned a bit about mineral sands lately.
Good work, Matty.
And I'm like, I remember you talking about it last year. I just didn't understand it.
Yeah. You and I
sort of
both.
do now. Right, take it away, Iluka. What's going on?
I just thought I'd do a quick one on Iluka from me, because they're the only quarterly release I saw out in the last couple of days. It's gone down 8%. And why is that? Their mineral sands revenue was $290 million for the quarter, about 15% lower than what the market was expecting. And Iluka's mineral sands business what they said for 2024, the whole of 2024, it generated $252 million of operating cash flow, but with a working capital build of $225 million across that full calendar year. Now, you read working capital build of $225 million, and you think, if you aren't super familiar with the mineral sands business, you probably think, what the fuck does that mean? How can you have a working capital build of $225 million? It's just bizarre, right? But the way I think about it with these niche commodity producers is a working capital build is just a build of inventory or work in progress. It's like, maybe you did part of the refining process, but not all of it, or you actually did produce some end product, but you haven't sold it. And what you observe with these niche commodity producers and with Iluka, they'll build inventories when the market is weak to try avoid oversupplying it. Because if you sell into it at that point, you kill the price even more, and maybe even like incrementally might not have a margin anymore, all that sort of stuff. So you withhold it, but it's sticky to just throttle producing straight away. So you just build inventories.
Sounds like an industrialist business. It's just got their warehouse full and they can't sell any of the stuff.
Yeah, and
like TLEA, the hydroxide.
Yeah, I mean the difference. Similar to what lithium might have been ages ago, and what Albemarle still tried to do with. But now the lithium market is much more fragmented. You've got more parties. But Iluka's, a really large contributor to the whole, mineral sands production. So their incremental production moves the needle a lot, and they're pretty conscious not to tip the market either way. So they'll throttle and swing production. And that's whole kind of, swing production strategy is inherent to their business model, and it goes all the way down to the infrastructure they even have. Like if you, when you drive down south and you go past where they've got those synthetic kilns, synthetic rutile kilns. Now there's two of them, but they treat one of them as like a swing kiln. It's like on or off, but which one is the swing kiln kind of changes over time as well. But they've got two of them. Have you ever driven down south and seen both of them on? It's a pretty rare event, but that's the purpose. Is like you've got the ability to produce more when the market's really good, and
that's the ilmenite, isn't it?
That's synthetic rutile is a rutile product, not ilmenite's not. It's a different product.
Yeah.
Doesn't bode well for free cash over 2024. That was I think a pretty gnarly 350 odd million loss.
Yeah. That working capital build means the market's been weak, right? So which again, I look at echo in the commentary on the market. They say in China the ceramic industry gradually scaled back production, with many factories closing for a period and not planning to resume production until post-Chinese New Year. But they did say the residential property market has shown signs of stabilising. Doesn't mean it's growing, just stabilising. That swing nature to their production, it also means there's a lot of volatility in the workforce from time to time. And in Iluka's case, they said 130 roles have been removed across operations and support functions, which will save them $20 million for 2025, which is pretty chunky. I'll refrain from ranting about any other today, but you guys know what I think of that too. So
sucks for those
Rutile
130 odd people. Yeah.
Have we ever talked about Sovereign?
No, not much, but that's interesting. It's like $440 odd million cap today. They put up an updated,
optimized
PFS. Rio Tinto.
Look, she's a fucking northeastern rutile in honor of the great Sierra rutile.
Yeah.
But yeah, natural rutile Interesting market.
Sovereign's a super interesting one, especially with that Rio Tinto investment.
Yeah.
So,
Rio's got their foot on it for sure.
things are kind of happening slow and steady.
Yeah. And it's Malawi is the thing that holds people up.
Yeah, bit of a different African jurisdiction. It's not one we've spoken about an awful lot, but fingers crossed it keeps going in the right direction there because the market has been liking it, like you say, Matty.
Yes, very good. Right, we got to get on the piss with CRE. And thank you to CRE for sponsor. I'll lick me lips thinking about a pint with the CRE crew.
A couple other thank yous, mate.
Oh, mate, the people that are going to shake up Pakistan. Mineral Mining Services and Saltbush. They're going to be hauling fucking 90 million tonne before lunch. Easy. So,
grounded out there as well.
Let's get a grounded camp over in. Tell you what, if I'm going to Reko Diq, I'd want a grounded camp. Mate, Sandvik Ground Sport probably won't need it over there, but look, Sandvik will give you something. We'll get it insured, but Reko Diq insured, broked by CRE. K-Drill, mate. Look, bit of bloody infill drilling, bit of RC drilling by K-Drill at Reko Diq. Mate, I reckon they could find another Reko Diq with the DaceSat geophys survey.
Like Bristow said, they're all around there.
They're all around.
DaceSat will find them for you.
Yes, well done. And anywhere that needs some fucking get wet bladders will be freaking Reko Diq. About 6,000 of them over there.
Hootaroo.
Hootaroo.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.